This is the incident of 10th April 1912, RMS Titanic, the world's largest and most luxurious ship of its time. It embarked on its maiden voyage, departing from Southampton, England, with its destination set for New York. Among the passengers on board were individuals from diverse backgrounds, esteemed industrialists, actors, as well as hopeful immigrants who were on their way to America in search of a better life. Leading the ship was the experienced 62-year-old senior captain Edward John Smith. The anticipation and buzz around this grand vessel were palpable among the passengers, the public, and the media. Not only was it the world's largest ship, stretching approximately 269 meters in length and standing over 53 meters in height, the luxury on this ship was awe-inspiring. In those times, it cost $7.5 million to build the ship, which, when adjusted for inflation, is equivalent to $400 million today. The interior of the ship boasted facilities and decorations that could rival even a five-star hotel. From stained glass windows to ornate wood paneling, 2 grand staircases, a heated swimming pool, a Turkish bath, an electric bath, a gym, a squash court, 4 restaurants, 2 barbershops, and a library. Titanic had it all. Moreover, it was believed to be an unsinkable ship due to the advanced safety features incorporated into its design. It was considered absolutely safe, a ship that could never sink. The company that built this remarkable vessel was called White Star Line. The vice president of the company was so confident in the ship's invincibility that he publicly declared it to be unsinkable. However, just 2 days after embarking on its maiden voyage, on the 12th of April 1912, Titanic started receiving its first ice warnings. The Atlantic Ocean that Titanic was traversing on its journey to America was filled with ice. Towering icebergs posed a significant threat to the ship's safety. Ice warnings were not uncommon in these waters. Ships sailing the oceans often communicated with each other through radio and signals, cautioning nearby vessels about the presence of ice in the vicinity and urging them to navigate with care. After receiving these warnings, Titanic altered its course twice to avoid danger, but it maintained its speed. It continued its voyage towards its destination at a speed of 1.5 knots, equivalent to 40 km. 2 days later, on the 14th of April, 1912, 7 more ice warnings were received, yet Captain Smith and his crew disregarded these warnings. They did not slow down the speed of Titanic. As the day draws to a close, the sun sets and the temperature drops. Notably, on the night of the 14th of April, the moon was not visible, resulting in the absence of moonlight. Consequently, visibility was reduced on this night. The ship had a crow's nest, a small platform situated at a height that served as a lookout point. Someone was stationed there to keep watch over the ship's course, looking out for other vessels or potential obstacles. The individual in the crow's nest had to endure extremely low temperatures and strong, chilling winds. Moreover, it was nighttime, making it even more challenging to maintain visibility due to the tearing caused by the cold winds. At 11:39 p.m., a man named Frederick Fleet was stationed in the crow's nest. Suddenly, he spotted a massive iceberg directly ahead. In quick succession, he rang the bell 3 times to alert those below deck, then swiftly picked up the phone and called the officers on the bridge. He urgently shouted that there was an iceberg in front of them and demanded immediate action to steer the ship away. First Officer William Murdoch received the message and urgently signaled the engine room to steer the ship to the left. However, tragically, it was already too late. Merely 1 minute later, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic collided with the iceberg, sealing its fate. This iceberg was no ordinary one. It stretched a colossal length of 200 by 400 feet, equivalent to the size of a football field. Its height matched that of the crow's nest. Scientists estimate the iceberg's weight to be around 1.5 million tons. The Titanic's front right side collided with the iceberg, specifically near the bow. Now, what exactly is the bow? As shown in this picture, the bow refers to the section right at the front of the ship where the collision took place. section above the bow is known as the stern, while the extended part below is called the keel. As the ship grazed against the iceberg for approximately 10 seconds, a significant dent was formed, causing small holes to appear in the ship's main body. You may wonder how ice can tear through metal. While ice from your refrigerator cannot cut through metal, consider the weight and force of a massive iceberg. Just as a metal car can be deformed when crashing into a tree, the sheer size and weight of the iceberg caused extensive damage to the Titanic. A few seconds after the collision, the ship's captain, Smith, and architect Thomas Andrews arrived at the site to assess the damage incurred by the ship due to the impact. When they saw the extent of the damage, they realized that the ship would sink. They were completely shocked upon witnessing this. They had firmly believed that this ship was unsinkable. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that this ship was considered unsinkable, owing to impressive safety features. There were two main safety features that led to this belief. First, the ship had a double-bottom hull. The main body of the ship is called the hull, and a double-bottomed hull means having two layers. Even if the layer below got damaged, the second layer could potentially save the ship. Second, the hull of the ship was divided into 16 separate watertight compartments. Even if 4 out of the 16 compartments were filled with water, the ship would still remain buoyant. It would make no difference to the ship. However, the impact from the iceberg occurred on the side of the ship. Unfortunately, the double-bottom hull proved to be of no use in this situation, as the sides of the ship only had a single layer. Additionally, the impact was so significant that 6 out of the 16 watertight compartments were breached. Water began filling all of them, surpassing the limit of 4 compartments. The inundation of these 6 compartments meant that the ship couldn't be saved from sinking. The unsinkable ship would sink. 20 minutes after the collision, at 12:00 a.m., Captain Smith ordered his crew to send a distress call over the radio. They hoped that nearby ships would detect it and come to their rescue. Senior radio operator Jack Phillips becomes the hero of our story. He began sending distress signals one after another, but there was no response. He sent another signal and another, desperately hoping that some ship out there would pick up their distress call. Finally, 20 minutes later, at 12:20 a.m., a ship called RMS Carpathia, which was in the vicinity of the Titanic, detected the distress signal. The operator of Carpathia spoke to the operator on Titanic over the radio and directed their ship to move towards the sinking Titanic to save its passengers and crew. However, there was a problem. Despite its proximity, RMS Carpathia was 107 kilometers away from the Titanic. Even if it moved at its top speed towards the Titanic, it would take approximately 3.5 hours to reach them. Would the Titanic stay afloat for 3.5 hours? In the meantime, the rest of the crew members on the Titanic lit up flares and fired rockets into the sky, hoping that a nearby ship would notice them. Unfortunately, apart from the Carpathia, there was no response from any other ship. Meanwhile, Captain Smith ordered the evacuation of the passengers using the lifeboats on the ship. As per protocol, women and children were given preference to board the lifeboat. Surprisingly, many of the passengers on the ship were not particularly scared. They believed in the unsinkable reputation of the Titanic, thinking there was no need to worry. After all, the company that advertised the ship had claimed its unsinkable nature repeatedly. So, while they acknowledged hitting an iceberg, they were confident the ship wouldn't sink. As a result, when the first lifeboat was lowered, even though it had a capacity of 65 people, only 28 individuals boarded. Half of the lifeboat remained empty. As time passed, compartments on the Titanic began to fill with water one after another. The ship started to tilt. Slowly, the passengers began to realize that the ship could indeed sink. When this realization struck, chaos erupted and people started running around. By 1 a.m., so much water had filled the compartments in the front that the bow of the ship had submerged. Consequently, the rear part of the Titanic surfaced out of the water, including the propellers at back. As the ship tilted to a significant degree, pandemonium reigned, with people fighting one another for a seat in the lifeboat. The problem was there was a scarcity of lifeboats on the ship. There were only 20 lifeboats, which could accommodate approximately 1,200 people. However, there were around 2,200 people aboard the ship. At 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat was lowered from the Titanic, but there were still 1,500 people on board. In the chaos, some people tried snatching a place in the lifeboats. On the other hand, some people had accepted their fate and chose to stay back on the ship. As one survivor recalls,
at the end, it was chaotic at the end. Everybody was crying, praying, trying to get into the few lifeboats that were left. No, it was pretty sad at the end.
Eyewitnesses reported that the ship broke into two halves at around 2:20 a.m. and then slowly began to sink. It didn't even take 3 hours for the supposedly unsinkable ship to go under. Of the 1,500 people still on board, many either drowned with the ship or, for those who knew how to swim, succumbed to hypothermia. The water temperature was 2 degrees Celsius, and falling into such cold water would lead to death within minutes due to hypothermia. It is said that Captain Edward Smith of the Titanic stayed at the wheel until the end and drowned with the ship. Some even believe that he committed suicide by taking his own life. The Rams Carpathia, the ship that set out to save the Titanic, arrived at the location around 3:34 a.m., but it was 1 hour too late. After the disaster of the Titanic, numerous questions were raised, controversies emerged, and investigations were conducted. Some unknown facts came to light that shocked everyone. Can you imagine that there was another ship just 37 kilometers away from the Titanic that night, which could have reached in time to save the passengers? It is true. The ship was the SS Californian. 1 hour before the Titanic hit the iceberg, the last iceberg warning was issued by the SS Californian. They had warned, "Watch out, there are a lot of icebergs in the ocean here." After that, at 11:15 p.m., the radio operator on the Californian ship had switched off the radio. The SS Californian ship had stopped for the night and was not moving ahead, considering the danger of iceberg. Since the ship was stationary and the radio was off, it did not receive the distress signals from the Titanic. Interestingly, the Titanic passengers on deck could actually see the Californian ship on the horizon. When officers were boarding passengers onto the Titanic, one of them even remarked that he could see a ship in the distance, assuring the passengers that help would soon arrive and there was no need to worry. However, the Californian ship did not come to the rescue even when rockets and flares were ignited. It is reported that after 12 a.m., the crew members aboard the Californian ship had indeed seen the rockets fired from the Titanic. They informed their captain Stanley Lord, but he insisted that it was not a distress signal, but rather the rich men on the Titanic enjoying a party. The next morning, when the crew of the Californian ship switched on their radio, they received the SOS calls from the Titanic. They rushed to the site, but by then, it was too late. They only encountered the heartbreaking sight of lifeless bodies floating in the water. Both inquiries conducted regarding the matter placed blame on Captain Lord of the Californian ship. However, one single man cannot be solely responsible for such a massive disaster. Other individuals and factors share the blame. For instance, the insufficient number of lifeboats played a significant role. The company that built the ship believed it was unsinkable and deemed lifeboats unnecessary. Additionally, the captain of the Titanic had neglected to conduct safety drills. On the day of the collision, a safety drill was scheduled but cancelled by the captain because he considered it unnecessary due to the ship's supposed unsinkability. Another mistake involved the steersman, Robert Hitchens, who was at the wheel that night. When the iceberg alarm was sounded, an officer on deck instructed the ship to turn left. However, in a panic, Hitchens misunderstood the message and steered the ship towards the right, which was the opposite direction, steered into the path of the iceberg. By the time he realized his error, it was too late. The British inquiry also revealed that the Titanic had received numerous iceberg warnings, emphasizing the need for caution. However, despite the warnings, the Titanic continued sailing at full speed. This raises the question, why didn't the captain slow down? There are various theories surrounding this decision. One popular theory suggests that Joseph Bruce, the chairman and managing director of White Star Line, the company that built the Titanic, exerted influence and pressured Captain Smith to maintain the ship's speed, there was immense pressure from the company to complete the Titanic's maiden voyage in just 6 days, aiming to break records and showcase the ship as not only the largest and most luxurious, but also the fastest. A particular incident occurred on April 14th at 2 p.m. when Captain Smith observed an ice warning and showed it to Joseph, suggesting that they should reduce speed due to the danger of iceberg. However, Joseph disregarded the warning and concealed the paper in his pocket, fearing that the passengers and crew would find out. He didn't want the speed of the ship to slow down. This single disaster forever changed the maritime industry worldwide. It led to the establishment of numerous new regulations and standards to prevent such tragedies in the future. In 1914, the International Ice Patrol was formed to alert incoming ships about icebergs in their path. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea was signed, introducing new standards for ships. For example, regulations were implemented to ensure a sufficient number of lifeboats for every passenger on board. The wreckage of the Titanic remained undiscovered beneath the sea for over 70 years. In September 1985, American ocean explorer Robert Ballard, along with a French oceanographer, finally located the Titanic on the ocean floor, resting 3,800 meters beneath the surface. The wreckage was found in 2 separate pieces, approximately 600 meters apart. Today, after all these years, the environment has started to erode the remains of the ship lying underwater. The actual grandeur of the Titanic can only be imagined, as what remains today is a haunting reminder of its tragic fate. It has been reported that bacteria and other organisms are slowly consuming the Titanic's metal framework, causing it to deteriorate. Experts predict that by 2030, the ship will completely disintegrate underwater. Even after 110 years, the allure of the Titanic still captivates the minds of people. In 2012, Australian billionaire Clive Palmer announced his plans to build Titanic 2, a replica of the original ship. He intended for it to sail the same route, meticulously recreating every element of the vessel. Originally set to be completed in 2016, the project has faced numerous delays and remains unfinished as of 2022. Interestingly, it is said that public interest in the project has waned, primarily due to the lack of modern amenities such as TVs and Wi-Fi on the replica ship. Perhaps before it even sets sail, the unsinkable Titanic 2 may have already met its fate. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, and see you on the next video.